Mr. Science, is the live feed up? Okay, hello everyone and welcome. It is the June 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Preston County Board of Education. I would like us to reflect that Mr. Zigare is not here, but we have 4 board members present, so we have a quorum. Superintendent Martin is not present, but Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Varner is present and acting in his behalf. So at this time, at 6:01, this meeting is called to order. We will start with a moment of silence, and then Mr. Kisner will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you'll please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'd also like to point out that this is a public meeting and the meeting is being live streamed. Okay. Mrs. Varner, we will start with recognitions.
Okay, this evening we would like to recognize Kingwood Elementary School. So if Mrs. Peasley, Mrs. Brewer, and Mrs. Fowler, Ms. Pell, and Ms. Williams would like to come up. You can stand. And the rest of you guys can just come up here. I'm going to let Mrs. Peasley, if you would like to discuss your guys' PBIS program that you guys, if you'd like to discuss your program and what all you guys did, and then if you guys would just like to come up, then we'll come down and shake your guys' hand and go from there.
So our Tier 1 PBIS program at Kingwood Elementary has been established for approximately 10 years now. We've really solidified that Tier 1 structure, something that every student in our building gets. While a lot of people, it is based on behavior, school culture, things like that, it is a lot of the database practices, the structures, the systems that we follow within our PBIS have really flowed into all aspects of our school. Instruction, providing attendance interventions and behavior interventions and all of those things. It really falls all under the same thing. So just having that growth mindset, having that data-driven mindset has really taken us far over the past several years. So, it's good to know that just maintaining things with fidelity pays off.
What we would like to do is say thank you for all of your hard work and dedication in keeping your program. You guys were recognized as the 24-25 West Virginia PBIS Positive Behavior Interventions and Support Tier 1 Model School by the WVU Behavior Mental Health Tech Assistance Center and the Marshall Autism University and the West Virginia Department of Ed. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Get close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming in your free time.
Okay, next we have delegations. I would like just to point out that no one signed up at the time of the meeting, so that list is clear. However, we do have 2 items that were submitted in advance. I'll start with first the West Preston, Faculty Senate submitted a letter that is in the public file. All board members had the option of reading that. I would propose that we maybe add that for an agenda item for a future meeting if we would like to get additional follow-up from Mrs. Varner and Mr. Martin. However, if there's, at this time, is there any request for additional information from board members? Or any quick discussion on that? We don't have the Faculty Senate here present.
Ms. Varner, have you and Mr. Martin, I believe that the letter references that 2 years ago, this was a proposal that was made to the board, and if I recall correctly, it was turned down by the board.
Yes, it was.
At that point in time. Did you and Mr. Martin discuss this? Do you have anything that you wanted to state on it?
At this time, both Mr. Martin and I, we have discussed this, and both feel that we do not think that it is a needed position at this time.
Okay.
Are all the statements in this letter correct? The leadership positions where they say that they have fewer than the other schools of the same size. Is that accurate?
They hold the same leadership capacities as like Brewston School, which is the school of the same size as they are. They have the same leadership teams and everything that Brewston, which is the same size as they are.
Do they have the same number of IEPs? Or are they accurate in saying that they have more?
I would say West Preston School probably has more student IEPs than what Brewston School does, yes.
Like significantly more, or?
I would not say significantly, but they do have more student needs than I would say Brewston does.
Because IEP meetings take up a fair amount of
Time.
time for an administrator in
Yes.
there. That could be an hour, or.
It could, yes.
Okay. I still would like for us to have this as an agenda item for a future meeting so that we can look into it a little further, and if we can get additional data comparing the schools to see how they compare. I think we all know just from the data that we saw from Mrs. Rush that we need to maybe put some emphasis on West Preston. And if this is an area that's causing that, then I think we need to look into it. Is there any objection to that, Mrs. Varner?
No.
For a future agenda item? Okay.
Just
Okay.
the fact that they reached out with some current concerns, I think we should
Yeah.
give our due diligence at least
Yeah.
and look into it.
And-
I agree.
Okay. Okay, so a future agenda item. Okay, next, under the delegation list, we have an item that Mr. Kisner asked to be put on. Do you want to do it from here, Mr. Kisner?
That's fine.
Okay, I would propose again, we don't have this on as a full agenda item, so we'll kind of go the same route that we would for any member of the public that wants to speak. How about you present the idea? Board members can ask for additional questions, then I think, again, this should be a future agenda item that we can more fully discuss. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just the preliminary, ultimately, all I'm looking at is if the board would agree to look into it. In the back of your handouts, it is not currently attached to the online, but is the section of our policy manual that discusses seniority of bus drivers. This was a proposal that came to me from the public. This was not my original idea that I get to take credit for, but I did think that it was worthwhile if the rest of the board agreed for us to consider looking at how we do our seniority for substitute bus drivers in earning that seniority in order to potentially try to help address the issues that were pointed out to us through Brewston, where we have areas of the county that people are less likely to accept substitute positions. So if the board would be amicable to consideration of potentially reviewing that, there are, from my understanding from our previous subject matter with Ms. Varner and Mr. Martin, whenever we did the summer bus drivers last year, there are things about seniority policy that are set by the state in some areas, and there are some things that are controlled. But I would just ask if everybody review this, that I would like us to consider at a future board meeting, potentially considering revamping this, if we think it would be beneficial for our system. If we could change it in a way that motivates people to take more jobs and consistently take them even when they're not in the areas they would prefer to be driving in. That's all that I've got.
Okay. Is there any questions currently of Mr. Kisner for additional information? And to clarify, Mr. Kisner, the policy that you're stating is our current policy that is available to the public through our website?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
It's just a printed copy was provided for us. but
Yeah,
that's
the
current
specific
policy.
pages of 839, pages 7 to 14 are not attached in board docs. They are part of our regular policy that is on the website.
Okay. Okay, so again, I ask for that just to be a future agenda item for the next meeting. Okay, so with that being said, we've addressed the two items that are on our agenda for delegations, and no one signed up. So next, we have review of committee assignments. So currently, the board will ascertain the members that will represent the board on the following committees. We have the Economic Development Authority, the CTE Craft Advisory, and Extension Service. With Mrs. Noss coming onto the board in April, this needs to be reassessed for the 2025-26 academic year. So I'll state I'm currently the rep for the EDA. I'm on the EDA, and I represent the Board of Education to the EDA. Who's the CTE Craft Advisory? Is that Mr. Zigray?
Currently, Mr. Zigray is the lead, and then I've taken second chair since we only have two at the meetings.
Okay. And then for Extension Service, Mike, you're on that?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Noss, do you have a preference of a committee that you'd like to be on?
No, I can do either one of the ones that only has one.
I would say from the EDA's standpoint, I feel we're covered fairly well with the issues. So if Extension Service, if that would be more of a need, or,
That would be a question to ask them. I mean, we
Okay.
had one meeting and they haven't reached out with anything since then, so.
okay. So we're probably okay at this time as we stand, or maybe two, you could be somebody that could bounce if one person's not able to attend a meeting, then fill in as a
Yes.
fill-in for this time?
Sure.
Is that agreeable with everyone, or any problems with that? Okay. So does anyone want to change committees? Okay. Okay, I think we're good then. Okay, next, it's recommended that the board approve the proposed 2025-26 Preston County Board of Education meeting dates and times. That is posted for the public. So this, we would take a motion for.
So moved.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Hovatter,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Okay, so these are recommendations that Mr. Martin provided, basically following the same schedule that we've had for the past few years. So meetings are at 6 o'clock for the majority. If we have to have a work session, then we could come in earlier. Again, we are moving around to different schools, which that is posted. So I'm open for any discussion that you have.
The only comment I'll make is the October 27th, me and Mr. Martin had looked at the calendar trying to see, but I will not be able to make that one in any way, shape, or form. I will be in a place with no internet, no phone, no whatnot. But there was no way to move that meeting in a way that we could get around that because it's going to be for a full week and it was going to put a pretty big gap in things. So
Okay.
I'm just admitting up front that that's one I'm conceding. There is a Tuesday meeting listed on July 29th. That one was at my request to Mr. Martin to move it from the 28th because I have another conflict already on my schedule with a different organization, so.
And two, just to point out that we could always change meetings in advance if we have to. If some circumstance comes out, we try not to, so that people can plan their schedules. Likewise, if we have to add in special meetings, that is added. But this is just a way, especially for new member Mrs. Noss, that we try to get our schedule out in advance so the public and members can start planning their schedules. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so I will call the vote on approving our proposed 2025-26 schedule of dates and times.
Voting is open. Four oh. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now let's approve the remainder of the agenda order. So it's recommended that the board approve the meeting agenda. May I get that motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there any discussion or proposed changes to the order of the agenda? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next, we have presentations, but there's none scheduled for tonight. That moves us to the meeting minutes. This is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the minutes from the June 9th, 2025 board meeting. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hovatter. Second by Mrs. Noss. Is there any discussion or corrections to the minutes? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Now we have the service personnel agenda. This is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the service personnel agenda. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Noss.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kisner. Okay, let's start with Mrs. Varner. Do you have anything that you would like to tell us?
On the agendas, we do have all of the substitute employees added for next school year to both agendas. The reason for doing this is with the new policy of 712. If they were retired and the retirement date is prior to July 1, and we get them on an agenda prior to July 1, they will be able to start subbing at the beginning of the year. If their retirement date is after July 1, so July 1 on, then they will not be able to sub within the 60 days of the start of the school. So we were trying to get as many people on our sub list prior to the end of June as we could. So we have a lot of subs on our agendas.
Okay. Any questions from board members? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Now it is. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next, we have professional personnel. This is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the professional personnel agenda. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hovatter,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Okay, again, Mrs. Varner, anything you'd like to say?
On this agenda, we were able to move one of our current employees, actually two of our current employees, which opened 2 of our recensions of our RIFT employees. So we've added 2 of our RIFT employees back into our current pool of employees for full-time employee status for next school year. And then again, we have a lot of subs on this on this agenda, as well as adding coaches for both fall and winter sports. So that is everything.
When we have resignations, do we do any type of exit interview with them to find out generally the reason why they are leaving?
We do have a form. Sometimes they fill them out. Sometimes I do not get anything back.
Can we double down on trying to get reasons back? I mean, so that we kind of know. I mean, do you have a general idea of, I mean, I'm sure there's a million different reasons why we lose personnel, but.
A lot of the times we're losing them is they're going to surrounding counties for
Pay, or-
for pay.
If we could formalize that so we can get some data, I think we need to start collecting that data to see, because, I mean, for the one that we have on the agenda currently, we've, I think, lost several individuals from that same school
Yes.
recently. Okay, other questions?
So with the recension of the assistant principal, will she assume her same job duties as she was doing before? And the reason I'm asking is with, we were presented and asked for the dean of students to assume those so is she going to be able to do what she was doing before?
We eliminated a assistant principal completely from that school, so they are having to redistribute the duties because not having 4, they're going down to 3. So they're going to have to pick up multiple duties. So she will probably have some of her original duties, but she'll have additional duties also upon that.
Is that assigned by the principal?
Yes,
Like the principal,
it'll be-
the head principal is going to decide what they're doing.
Who's going to do
She could be
what.
doing completely different stuff. We would presume not, but just,
Yes, I'm sure she'll still be doing some of the attendance things, but she'll have other duties on top of that. She may have to pick up some of observations, some evaluations of a subject area, or things along that line also.
But just for clarification too, so at this current school year that just ended, we had 4 assistant principals at the high school?
Yes.
Is that right? And then we cut one of the positions, right? So that made it down to 3.
3.
Then of those 3 remaining, we have one of the assistant principals that's on this agenda to take a principal position at a different school. So that would have left us with 2 assistant principals, and then this brings back the third back in. Is that correct in my,
Yes.
how I've gone through that?
well, except for there was
So-
0.5 principals, right? One of our principals was halftime athletic director.
Well, when he was hired, that was an extra duty assignment that was added to his contract as
Okay.
an assistant principal.
Okay.
So that part was removed from his assignment as assistant principal.
Okay. All right. So some amount of time was allocated. It wasn't, that's
Yes.
all. I just remembered there was at least. a
He was
partial-
hired as
yeah.
CTE
Right.
/ assistant principal, and then he had an extra duty assignment as the athletic director, and that has been removed.
But we had 4 this ending school year, we had 4 assistant principals, and next year we'll
We'll
have
have 3.
3.
Yes.
Okay. And they're all 3 the same that were assistant principals this
Prior
past
to.
school year?
Yes.
Okay.
Just in this subject matter, let's say that you were to have a like middle school baseball coach, and they resign. So we had them and assistant coaches. Are those assistant coaches still automatic, or do those positions lost and have to come back when the new head coach is determined? Does that make sense?
So if they were a volunteer coach, the head coach can choose if they want their volunteers to remain.
Okay.
The assistants do remain, but sometimes once the new head coach is chosen, the assistants choose to not remain.
Right. right, okay, but they're considered to be under like all the same rules. They can't help out with youth leagues and with other teams in that age group. They're still considered on coaching until determined otherwise by a new head coach
Yes.
and during that process. Okay, thank you.
But they have to renew that every year, though. I mean, that's not just automatically.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we just recently had some head coaches, not on this agenda, but on a previous one, and that's why I was. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Noss, any questions?
Nope.
Okay. All right, anything else? Okay, thank you. I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. And since you're here, Ms. Herco, thank you and congratulations on your new role at West Preston School. Okay, next on our agenda, we have the MOU between Preston County Schools and Southern Educational Services Cooperative for FY26 bus operator training. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve the MOU between Preston County Schools and the Southern Educational Services Cooperative for the fiscal year 2026 bus operator training. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Next, we have an MOU between Preston County Schools and the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, Hopemont Hospital. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve the MOU between Preston County Schools and the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, Hopemont Hospital, for use of the Terada East Preston School as an evacuation center in the event of an emergency for Hopemont Hospital and for Hopemont to be used as an evacuation center for Terada East Preston School for the same reasoning. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there any discussion? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next, we have an MOU between Preston County Schools and Good Pediatric Rehabilitative Services. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve the MOU between Preston County Schools and Good Pediatric Rehabilitative Services to provide professional occupational therapy services to students. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mrs. Noss. Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next, we have an MOU between Preston County Schools and Little Minds Speech Therapy. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve the MOU between Preston County Schools and Little Minds Speech Therapy. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Discussion? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the superintendent's report.
In your guys' packet, you will have the report from Aero Engineering, where they did an on-site assessment for the deterioration of the block work on the gym at Kingwood Elementary School. They have 2 courses of action on there for you guys to review. They had a primary recommendation and a secondary recommendation. And when Mr. Martin returns at the end of this week, he'll be conferring with Mr. Murray on which course of action would be best to go with. Also in your packet, we have the letter from Mrs. Patzel, which is our Director of Special Ed from the State Department. And we have received the final documentation that our Special Ed Department has met all of the compliance documentation for our on-site monitoring, and we are good to go with our special ed closeout. So we are good for there. Last week, they started sealing parking lots by the Pro V service vendor. They completed both West and Central Preston, and they will be doing South Preston this week, towards the middle of the week, hopefully on Wednesday, Matt said. The vendor for final floors have completed all of the stripping and resealing of West, Central, South, Brewston, Terrata, and Preston Heights gym floors. Other maintenance-related issues, there was a water main break up at the parking lot at Terrata. The Terrata Water Department was in consult with Mr. LaRue, and they will have to repair a section of our parking lot as well as the sidewalk out in front of the school. And we are currently working, Mr. Sines is, to remove the technology infrastructure out at Fellowsville, and we're going to try to get ready to liquidate the unneeded board property in the building out at Fellowsville. Summer school will begin next Monday. It'll be for K-3, some 4th and 5th graders at certain schools, and the high school credit recovery will all start on Monday, June 30th, and run through the end of July. We will be having school at Brewston, Kingwood, and West Preston with regional busing servicing those areas. And the credit recovery will be, the students will find their own transportation to the high school. We'll also have 2 academic camps for interested middle school students on July 7th through the 11th, or July 21st through the 25th, depending on which interest we have the most on for which dates. There'll be a sports and wellness camp and a culinary camp for those dates. Last week, Mr. Barton, Ms. Layton, and Ms. Rush attended the WVA-SA School Administrators Conference, which was held at Stonewall. They heard updates from Michelle Blatt, which she gave remarks on public education in West Virginia. Christian Jackson came and talked about how AI could be used as a practical tool for educational leaders. They also attended several individual sessions sponsored by different districts and vendors, including updates on procedures for writing successful grants with SBA, strengthening reading and writing in K-12 classrooms, enhancing student outcomes and parent involvement through tiered support systems, keeping students safe with Monroe County schools, using AI to enhance leadership practices, making the most of ThrillShare with Wood County, and building instructional leaders with Ritchie County, strengthening between schools and the community, creating a culture of investment and trust. Our end of the year's data submissions have been submitted for review by the Department of Ed. Mr. Martin and Ms. Layton will certify all submitted data pending approval to proceed from the Department of Ed by the end of this week. The next regular scheduled meeting is for Monday, July 14th at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom, depending on if you guys approve the submitted board agendas, which you guys did. And I just wanted to add that on this Thursday, June 26th at 9 a.m., we will be having one of our new employee trainings, and then we'll also have another one in July.
Okay. So I should say July 14th is our next meeting, not
Yeah.
June 14th, okay. Okay, questions for the superintendent?
Ms. Varner, the letter about the special education reports, references I believe it references a report for September of '24 and December of '24.
Okay?
And I think ultimately the letter is just congratulating us on getting in compliance. But can we see, as a board, the full reports from the September and the December findings?
Yes, we can get that to
Could we
you.
get copies of those,
Yeah.
just as a board to review, please?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Kisner, for that. Okay, other request? Is there going to be an official, like, to the board, plan regarding Fellowsville Elementary School? Like in your update, you said that you're liquidating unused property and the building. I'm assuming that the board has to take action on liquidating any substantial property, being the real estate.
Yes.
So will there be like a discussion agenda item where we grant that approval and a discussion, and also a discussion with the community so that the community is involved in that process? I think we just need to talk about that formally so that the community knows how we're going to go about that and what our time frame is.
Okay.
Anything else?
With the aero engineering letter, would you say Mr. Martin's going to present that to us the next meeting with a recommendation?
Yes, so him and Mr. Murray are going to get together when he returns at the end of this week and early next week, review everything from aero engineering together, and then come back to you guys with a proposal of what should occur to help the maintenance of the building. They gave a primary and a secondary recommendation. So he wants to get with Mr. Murray to go over the recommendations from aero engineering and then present to you guys what.
Now, did they do a detailed report that they submitted, and this is just a letter you guys gave us, or is this basically all we as an entire school board has received from them?
I did not get the actual letter that came from aero engineering. This is just what Mr. Martin had put into the report here. So there may be more of a detailed report of what they actually found.
Did Mr. Martin happen to mention, like, what they thought that, option 8, the primary recommendation definitely sounds like it's the more expensive potential. Did they give any kind of an idea that you're aware of potential costs to that?
I'm not
Okay.
aware.
So we'll just be informed, and we'll follow up on that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, other questions? Okay, Mrs. Noss, okay. All right, thank you, Mrs. Varner. Okay. Next on the agenda is out-of-state field trips, but we have none. Chaperone volunteer list, there's nothing. Professional meeting, there is nothing. Ongoing literacy discussion, you have an update there in writing. Is there any discussion regarding that?
Sad that that's, I mean, we had talked last meeting about the enrollment being so far down that kind of expected we were probably going to close down some sites, but.
So I guess just for the interest of the public then, so the update from Mrs. Rush is, Mrs. Rush and Mrs. Kelly coordinated an all-day meeting with summer school staff on June 16th, 2025 in preparation for the programs that will begin on June 30th, 2025 at Kingwood Elementary, West Preston, and Brewston. Interested Terrata, East Preston, and Aurora students will be attending the program at Kingwood. South Preston area students are attending at West Preston. Okay. Okay, if there's nothing further on that, then we will move down to finance for our contract review as per policy 8200. This is a discussion and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the proposal from Zonar Systems for the 2025-26 academic year.
So move.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mrs. Noss. Is there any discussion?
So I also have Mr. Plum here, who can also speak about our Zonar system. This is going to be for our transportation department, buses, as well as our county vehicles. So,
So basically, this is like an electronic log that will track all hours of service to make sure we're in compliance with federal requirements, and then also with timekeeping for payroll purposes and stuff like that.
Does that, it has some other nice features. It'll be a computer in each bus. And one of the things, we have about 80% of our fleet that's not kept here, it's kept at the driver's houses. And so this basically tracks and forces them to do a pre-trip and post-trip on it and logs that information, so it kind of, it can't get away with not doing it. It has sensors that we place along the bus, on the engine, and different things that they need to check. And they carry this tablet around, and they have to spend so many minutes there, and it logs it. And it makes it check everything out, make sure they're doing it. One of the other nice features is the GPS mapping. We tried, one of the most popular ones around is Transponder. Jason tried it for me, and it didn't work, and then I tried it, and I found the same problems. What we do, despite satellites and the 911 mapping, it just doesn't want to understand the address and what it is. And you actually have to manually type in the route and the address, the full address, and it would kick out about 200 a week. You have to manually put them back in, and the next week it's the same thing. In fact, I think they try to use this in Montana. I think Jason, I think they got rid of it, but it was very expensive also. This one works a little bit differently. Right now, our substitutes, unfortunately, are just kind of have to wing it, because we give them a map, a paper map, and we give them a schedule. But if you've never been on that road and it's early in the morning after dark, you might miss some students and some stops. You don't have to type in with Zonar. Actually, the first time you take the trip, the driver takes the trip, every time he opens the door, it marks that as a stop. And then, when they get that established, say a substitute comes off the bus, they can go to the beginning of the route and start it. It's kind of like when you take a trip in your car, and it tells you, okay, you're going to take an exit in 300 feet to the right. It's going to have a black screen so they're not distracted, and it's going to talk to them and be able to say, okay, your next stop is in 100 feet. And so it's going to be very useful for a substitute driver.
Sounds great. Does it do anything like that pre-trip or whatever when they're done? Just recently, I think in Garrett County, a student got left on a bus during a hot day, and I think that's caused quite a stir across the border here. Does it do something to make sure that they're checking? If I understand correctly, part of the process is supposed to be checking all the seats before they exit the bus.
Well, and also too, a small child can crawl down under the seat
Yeah.
and go to sleep, and it's happened. And when you go out, and one of the sensors will be on the back, and it's going to force them to open the door and look up through the bus.
Okay. Yeah.
I like it.
Have bus drivers been consulted, or have you talked with them formally or informally about this system to get any feedback from them?
We installed one as a pilot on one of the buses. We have not met with all the drivers and talked to them how it works or anything like that. A lot of the drivers are familiar with it from other counties. I believe there's about 18 counties now in West Virginia that are using it.
How did the pilot process work out?
It was working great until that bus had to go to the shop, and it's been there for several months. So, it kind of was cut short. But I mean, the driver liked it.
So this price then, because this is $108,000, it will retrofit individual buses, but then if we get new buses in, do we have to pay additional to retrofit them? Or how does this work?
It's my understanding
So that sort of didn't fully answer my question. And so, but this will then install across all of our existing bus fleet now? This will cover all of our buses? And then any additional,
And also the county vehicles.
and
So
county,
it will also track the mileage and where they go, and you can track if they're going somewhere they're not supposed to, and it will track the fuel.
but this is a yearly cost that we're having to pay for the monitoring. It says.
Which is typical for any type of electronic monitoring for this kind of
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, Ms. Clay, it says a 1-year contract required, so I'm assuming this is an annual.
Yes, but some of these costs will be, some of them are billed annually, some of them are only billed one time. So
But the
like-
ones that say build one time don't appear to have any
They
values.
have
The only
no
thing that I'm
cost.
seeing is a build annually next to any of the cost. So, like, to me, the way I read this is it's $108,000 a year, is how I read it. I'm not telling you that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, like the
Well,
one, the training and
minus the
some of that stuff will
2,700.
come off.
Right, but those are
Yes,
negligible.
Those are small,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Mr. Hobart, you probably have the most experience with this kind from your industry. I mean, what's your recommendation or opinion?
I mean, I looked at this extensively. With what I have in my fleets isn't anything anywhere close to this. And the price per unit is, I think it's more than fair. I mean, I have no issue with it whatsoever.
Okay.
With all the capabilities have, and I really like the fact that I didn't know that it had all the sensors that actually force them to walk around the bus and stuff. I mean, you can't even put a price on that. I mean, just the fact that,
You know, if you're out there at your house at 5:30 in the morning, how do you know they're opening the hood?
right,
And, you know, and so they're gonna have, there'll be, I think there's 3 or 4 of them in the engine spot, they're gonna have to, like, zap it or whatever, stand, it won't let you move on for, like, you can't just, there's a time limit on it. Like, you know, a sufficient time before you're allowed to, it's gonna show that, if they move on too fast.
So the tablet requires them to hold it there for long enough to censor something.
You have to get on it, and then, like, before, if you go immediately to the next one, it's gonna red flag it. It'll tell you that, hey, something's wrong here.
moving too
And I
fast, you're
think
not spending enough
buses,
time on it.
How it work, I mean, like, when we sell a bus, we're gonna take it out of the bus. You know, I don't think they don't want us to take it to Jane Lou to put a new bus, I think we'll just get a credit and then we'll put the new one.
So I'm assuming if we buy this, then obviously we're going to train all of our employees on how to use it
We
properly.
would have to have Zonar, and I believe that's part of the contract.
Yes.
Zonar will come.
They're gonna
and we
come.
have most of the buses here, we have a few still out, and of course, the summer band, summer school and all that, we'll have to trade them in and out, but they will come here and install all of them.
Yes.
And then we'll have to use them on staff development day, they will come also and train us.
Okay, but probably the most important part is going to be from an administrative standpoint in the office of downloading those reports and working with employees that maybe have red flags from their thing and train them additionally. If we're not going to monitor it, then there's no point in doing it.
And you mentioned the, like the monthly reports, like, it will cut down all of the paper that Cindy does now, the mileage reports for every bus, including the sub-buses, and the fuel reports, that should be able to be downloaded right into the program.
Okay.
And so it should eliminate all of the actual manual typing in of things.
Would it be possible, as you do your normal updates, I think you normally update the board quarterly, let's say, I'm not sure if it's more than that, but twice a year. Can that be a part of your updates where you either print the reports or give us an electronic copy? It doesn't have to, I don't want by driver, but I would like it to be sensitized or desensitized so that we don't know who it is. But I would like to see the reports and confirm that we're using all of the capabilities that we're paying for.
Yeah, and I assume also that it's going to give you a confirmation of all the mileage and all the fuel usage as well, too, to be able to record that at that time.
Yeah. The bus drivers I've talked to are not excited. I don't know why. I can't get clear. Like, to me, it sounds like, well, it's what you're supposed to already be doing, and then, I mean, you know, change is not always, change is scary.
Yeah, but
I do think that I understand that this is being or that this is something that's being pushed by the mechanic's office. At least they are for it in some way, and I know that there is some friction in between those two drivers and in the maintenance department or whatever. So again, I don't know what that is. Just to your question, as far as I have talked to some drivers about this, I think that we've had something that connects with this in the maintenance department for a year or two already. Not that it's been utilized by the bus drivers, but something that tracks some of our maintenance stuff that's from a similar company.
Well, that's Face Off. And
Okay.
we'll have that up and running here this summer and start using it this fall. And Zonar will interact and work with Face Off.
Okay.
And that will, Face Off will, I think I might know what you're talking about with that is like work orders.
Yeah.
Normally, what they're used to now is pop in the garage and tell the head mechanic, hey, this is wrong with the bus. Well, we want to be able to track that and get it down on, in a computer program to see if it's actually been taken care of, the date it was taken care of, so, it's, especially if our new buses are under warranty. Right now, there's just no way to track that. It's just all word of mouth.
Yeah.
And so Face Off will do that. It also has a program for parts inventory. Hopefully we can get one of our mechanics back. Hopefully we can get that one at some point. But it will assist in that as well.
Yeah. And I assume, you mentioned there's some significant paperwork that this is going to reduce from the time of Miss Cindy's job. But I am assuming that a lot of analysis into this and tracking, and again, as Mr. Tatham pointed out, I know somebody who recently implemented something similar to this in one of their fleets, and they were amazed at how often they saw some of their employees going home in the middle of the day. Or in our case, taking a bus to Walmart outside of their path, or whatever those things are. So, I'm assuming that as part of this implementation, that role and your role is going to be, as Mr. Tatham, does us no good to know it and then allow it, because that actually encourages things if there's no.
So right now, they're doing pre-trips on paper with the
Yeah.
checklist. And that and the mileage and the fuel all has to be hand input. This will just automatically,
My only question really is, this in no way will preclude, this does not prevent the starting of a bus. This doesn't preclude in any way, if somebody needs a bus needs to move, it can move. This doesn't stop that, halt that. I assume that it logs something that says that the bus took off without that checklist being
We
done.
have a gas leak in an emergency, and I have to, we have to jump on the bus right now
Yeah.
here and go. It's not going to stop.
Yeah, it's not in any way going to stop anything, just is going to put an alarm off that says it wasn't done. So, thank you.
Nice question.
So what are the units that are 90? With almost everything's 70, but
I'm
there's a
guessing
few.
those are for the cars.
Oh, that's the.
I'm guessing.
I actually haven't seen the latest proposal.
Oh, okay.
How many buses are in the fleet?
We still have about 8 more we need to sell here, and when we come back in July. It's been a
we
slow
did.
process with one mechanic. I'm just going to script it first and get them ready. But starting in the fall, we'll have 54 on the road daily, and we aim to have about 13 spares.
So 70.
So 70 would be about the buses. My
20
guess when I
cars.
reviewed it was the 20 was just the units that are going to go in our cars, because those would not require a pre-checklist and some of those other sensors and all that. So that was my guess.
There was a couple county vehicles we decided not to
To
put
put
in
'em in.
the dump truck and things like that. We decided not to put, but most of them happen, yes.
Okay.
I just kind of put together the numbers where it says the zonal TCU kits and then the certified kits equals up to 90.
Okay.
And with the system you're using now, I can't remember what you called it. I saw on here that it's doing a fault IQ. So with today's technology and all these vehicles, I know with my e-log system I use in my trucks, that if I have a driver call, say they have a check engine, I can pull it up on my e-log and it generally will tell me what the fault code is or what's causing the fault code. That's basically what this is going to do also, correct?
This will automatically, supposedly, from what I understand, generate that work order into Chief Mechanic's computer
Okay.
without the driver actually having
Having
to
to
do
come
that.
in.
Now, they can also do that. But if there's certain things that's wrong with the bus, it should automatically send that in.
That's nice.
Okay. Anything additional? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Plum. Okay. I call the vote.
Voting's open. 4-0, vote passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the levy check report. This is an information item. It's all available for the public. Is there any questions or comments? Not hearing any. Next, we have the schedule of checks. This is an action item. It's recommended to approve the schedule of checks to be written. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hovatter,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Discussion or questions?
So I have a question that came through an email to me that some of the descriptions for our travel reimbursements are left blank. Is there a reason why they're left blank if it's a travel reimbursement?
I've known, like, I even went back and looked through past ones, and we've never put a thing out from the travel reimbursements. Even on the old ones, like over here, there has never been a description on them. So I will have to go back and ask finance tomorrow morning, because Mr. Kisner forwarded that email to me this afternoon, and finance had already left. So I will need to ask them.
Or ask them if there's a way that there can be something, because if it's a conference, then at least we know what the travel was for, and the public knows what the travel's for.
Yeah, I would say if we could put a comment in, which obviously we can because the field's there, then let's do it. I mean, because we
Right.
have that information when the paperwork is submitted.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have it. I think in the past that the finance department has just indicated it's just additional typing as far as putting things in. It can be done, it just is whether or not they think of it at the time and whatnot. I did reach out, well, actually, that one, that's for a later one, I'm sorry. But the one question, and the Frontier bills, do we know what the $910 from Frontier is?
Can you speak up, Mr. Sines?
It's for the bandwidth at school. So 910 is for 1 gig right now on Frontier.
Okay.
So I don't think, I'm just now looking at this right here, I don't think they have them broken down by schools, but that's why there's, should be 10 of them right there for 10 locations. Plus the pop lines, there should be 11 of them.
Okay. I don't remember seeing a bunch of them in a line like that in the past.
Yeah, most time they just come in, they just put one value on there, but this time she actually has it broken down by location.
Okay, that helps. It looked odd to me compared to what I'm used to seeing, and I thought, because, right, our contract with them
Ends at the end of the month.
ends at the end of this month, and so I didn't know if this was some kind of a termination or what was going on there, so, thank you.
That's actually the month price, month price.
Okay.
Okay. Additional questions? Mr. Hovatter?
No, sir.
Mrs. Noss? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting's open. Everybody
Nothing's
voted?
coming yet
Oh,
to
there it
me.
is. They're popping. I have Cross and Mike's.
See, I think I got mine. I think I voted.
Got it.
Don't ask me, to remember 2 minutes ago.
Mine was not coming up here.
4-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we have Budget Journal Entry 157. This is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the Budget Journal Entry number 157. This is for numeracy implementation.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting's open. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next, we have end-of-year budget journal entries. This is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the end-of-year budget journal entries as presented in order to ensure proper alignment of expenditures and revenues in accordance with the applicable accounting standards and to facilitate accurate financial reporting for the fiscal year-end closeout. May I get that motion?
So move.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner, seconded by Mrs. Noss. Okay, discussion.
I did reach out to finance for our concerned citizen, just to, if they could give us some examples of what some of those others were. In general, in a lot of, or at least in accounting software that I've used, other actually is the main subject heading. So for instance, if you say other service personnel, in other software, it actually is service personnel. It's just that all the sub-accounts of service personnel are used, and at the end, the other is actually those things that were coded to the service personnel. But I've asked for clarification just of what those are. I don't have any personal concerns. Year-end, as you guys can see, this is a huge entry, and this happens when they're cleaning up the books coming up close. We're going to see we'll see another bunch of them after June's over, to be honest. But, or at least I would expect so. I don't have any personal concerns over them in my review.
Any other questions? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting's open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the monthly financial report for May 2025. This is an information-only item. The information is available for the public. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. We'll move on to the maintenance work order system update. This is an information item. Mrs. Varner, is there anything that you would like to update us with?
Mr. Sines and I went ahead and re-updated the 2 work orders, the open work orders and the completed work orders, so that the whole printout would be able to be seen. So their updated versions are in there.
Okay. Okay, board members? Mr. Hovatter?
Yeah, I was just looking to see if they were still cut off. It looks like they're still cut off on the right side on my attachments.
The 2 bottom ones,
Maybe I clicked the wrong one.
look for the 623 ones.
Clicked the wrong one.
Yeah. She added, you didn't remove
Yeah.
the old ones.
I
you
did
added
remove
two.
the old ones, I just
Oh, wow.
added to, under the 623
Yeah.
dates.
Yeah, and thank you guys for getting to that so quickly, just as far as
Yeah.
public transparency. Appreciate it.
It's better than guessing what it was.
Okay. Nothing else on that topic? Okay, we'll move on to approval of vendor for school building authority project at Kingwood Elementary. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve the submitted bid by Veritas for completion of the scheduled school building authority project at Kingwood Elementary for a total cost of $759,474, with funding for the project from the SBA and local excess levy funds. May I get that motion?
So move.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Okay, Mrs. Varner, is there anything that you want to start with for this one?
So we had 2 vendors come and fill out and submit bids. Those 2 vendors you can see on our list here. Thrasher Engineering was here with us. We opened the bids. And from the checklist and tally sheet, Veritas came in with the low bid through both ways of doing the tally sheet. So we submitted everything down to the state SBA, and they responded back to us, and our vendor needs to go to Veritas Contracting. So with your guys' approval tonight, then we will move ahead with getting everything set out to, bid out to start the project at Kingwood Elementary School.
Okay. Questions from board members?
I make a motion, we postpone this vote until we get the bids back to fix the gym. And if it's extensive amount that these both total, that we might consider getting these kids moved up here to.
Okay, let's just start. So you made a motion to amend. Let's see if we get a second.
I think you made a motion to postpone the vote.
I'm sorry,
until we get
but
the
that would
other-
be amending. So you have a motion to postpone this vote. Let's get a second, then you can discuss the pros and cons. Is there a second?
I'll give a second.
Okay, so we have a second by Mr. Kisner. Okay. Mr. Hovatter, if you want to explain.
Okay, so I was saying, I just suggest we do this until we get the bid price back on repairs to the exterior of the gymnasium at Kingwood Elementary School. And then maybe we ought to look at what the total cost would be, because it's my understanding that originally the Kingwood Elementary School was supposed to become part of Central Middle School. So if we're looking at a lot of money to fix this old building, that part of it, if I'm correct, was built in the 40s, that maybe that, we should look at spending that money to move those kids up to Central, where, like I said, that was the plan when all these schools were built. The new schools were built. Unless I'm wrong in that, but still, we're looking at almost $760,000 for this, and then who knows what the other one's going to be. We might be well over $1 million on fixing an 80-year-old building.
So I think your proposal is smart for us to be considering. Ms. Varner, the way that I read this, and it's still a lot of money, we're going to provide 35% of the project cost and the SBA. So this has already been proposed to the SBA, and we've got a 65% matching. The bids are coming under what is
under,
budgeted
yes.
From the contribution side. I assume the percentages stay the same. We're going to provide 35% of the 760 now.
Yes.
Is there any timeline that we are under for this SBA decision? Like, do we have to be back? I don't want to lose $700,000 or $600,000 from the SBA unnecessarily, and maybe that means we call a special meeting. I'm not punting what you're saying.
Right.
There's a lot of validity to what you're saying. Right? We have no idea if they say that there's a huge compromise to the brick walls.
Or we could potentially look at a lot of money.
Right. We could have bigger monetary issues.
So we are under a timeline. With all of these dates for all of this, we've already started the timeline with this project. I'm not sure of how quickly, with your guys' vote, that we have to get this resubmitted back down to the state for them to get to get back to Veritas to get the project going. But I do know we are under timelines to get everything approved and the project started. As far as adding a project onto this, since we've already started this project and it's been approved, I don't know if we're able to do that.
Yeah, but to his point, if it's another $1 million because there's block wall issues all over the place, we may not want to invest this, I guess is the more.
Yes.
That's what I'm.
Yeah,
Right,
I
that's the
understand
more
what he's
important
saying,
question
yes.
At that point in time. I agree with you. I don't think the SBA is going to say, yeah, hey, we gave you an extra, you
Yeah.
had an extra 150 play in there, you can just use it for block walls.
Walls.
But,
No, I wasn't saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like the total cost of repairing, between this project and what could potentially be
A structural
the structural
issue
issue that
of the
we're
other
looking
building.
at. We could, who knows? I'm no engineer. I have no idea what we could be looking at, but I think it would be wise of us to find out what that number's going to be before we agree to spend 35% of this, but, you know, still, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I think
I don't want to waste the state's money any more than I want to waste my dollar.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
I mean, I have no opposition unless you think that we're under a week's time frame. I mean, even if we had to call a special meeting, I don't think this would
Yes.
qualify, well, it may qualify as an emergency, I don't remember, but even if we had to call a special meeting in 3 or 4 days based on some feedback that I think what you're mentioning is prudent as far as taking into account from where I sit.
Me personally, I feel like they're separate issues. I feel like the door is separate from the gymnasium. I think, because that's what we're talking about, is the blocks on the gymnasium, right? That is an item that we as a board asked for, I believe through board member Mr. Zigray, asking for us to look into it. And I'm glad that we are proactively looking into it. And I would agree with you that, you know, if it was a private business, that we would probably want to look at the whole thing as one time. Do we want to replace the door that we've been working on for a year to 2 years now? This is a project that we've been moving on. Do we want to move forward with that if we don't know what we're dealing with over here? But I think in this environment with the SBA, I don't think that we personally have that luxury of time and dealing with, now that we've already put it out to bid with Veritas. I think any delay is just going to cause more delay and more costs in the future. So I personally feel like even if we get the door replaced and we realize that over here we have a major problem, we have to deal with that problem once we know what it is and how severe it is. And so I hear you, but personally, I think that we should move forward with this project so that we can get it done in some type of time frame for the school year. Mrs. Noss?
So I think I'm with Mr. Hobatter that if the structural question is there, do we put in new doors that will eventually not be used because we won't be at that building because of structural issues? So if there's a way to get that information timely to kind of know where we're going to set, I think that's important to do before we move forward putting in doors that may not be necessary.
Right, that's just all predisposed, I mean, assuming that we would, if whatever that comes in for that we're not going to be at that school any longer. But that is going to be, from my personal opinion, that is going to be a decision that's going to take 1 or 2 years to make. We wouldn't be able to close and move a school. I mean, we could if we had that information. It could happen quickly, but it could be a year or two before we would know that information with it.
Meaning that you take this block assessment, you take the primary recommendation to take a year to perform. That's what I'm clarifying.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
saying,
that's
do
what-
we think that in a week we're going to have a decision made on what this will entail and where that money's coming from? And if the SBA is helping with it, that we're going to know what their match is?
No, I don't think any of that is the concern. The concern would be is if the school would be considered structurally unsound and we're not going to have students there, not wanting to move forward with signing a contract with Veritas that commits us to replacing doors that may not be, now again, it's a gymnasium, according to what the report is, that's the only block that we're seeing that they're looking at. We're not being told that there's any other structural, a school can operate without a gym. It's not ideal, it's not what we want, but in theory, it could operate without a gym.
I mean, that school's at least 3 different parts.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I
Right.
said, some
Yes.
part of it was built over 80 years ago, but yeah,
That's
I was
Morgan
just looking
Street.
at the
Yeah,
overall.
Morgan Street is the bottom part, which is
The
the
cafeteria.
oldest.
And there's
then-
part of it that they're not even using right now because of issues.
No, we're using it all now. We've got the
All of it.
boiler fixed, everything is
Okay.
working. So the Morgan Street is in use. That's for the cafeteria, and we have a few classrooms down there, like music, art, it's all down in the lower building. And then you have the main building, which is the part that has the doors where we're fixing it. And then you have the new pre-K addition, kindergarten and pre-K addition, which is the side building, which is the newest part. And then you actually have the K, where the gym and the multipurpose room, and down that side, that's a newer part also. So that section there has been built on also.
And I'm not opposed to the doors, like, at all. It's a great idea. Every other school in the county has these. But I'm just saying, if the original idea was for these students to be over here at Central, and we are looking at an absorbent amount of money to spend on this old building that, I mean, what's the capacity?
Let me
If-
ask it this way, Ms. Varner. Does the current school's facilities plan indicate a movement of KES into CPS at some point in time? Do you know?
Well, the CEFP plan originally had parts of Kingwood coming up to Central, but it had, like, Central had an addition of 4 more classrooms to be built onto it. So 4 classrooms. So not all of Kingwood Elementary was to be moved to Central, but just 4 additional classrooms.
Okay. That is something that's in our future, as far as the plan is concerned, right?
Yeah, for 4 classrooms, not the entire.
Is that a grade?
That would have been a grade.
Okay. Okay. Does that help? I think that's getting
that
more to what
helps,
you're
but, I
asking,
mean-
like, what was the plan? I don't know that, yeah.
Well, I didn't know there was any formal plan in place. I didn't know
Yeah.
that yet. But I was just saying, what would it take if we had to move the students over here, if we would make that decision at any point in time? Like, how much
yes.
more building on will we need? I mean, I'm sure it'd be, I mean, how many kids are enrolled at Kingwood for the upcoming year? Do you know?
Probably about 360, 370,
Okay.
pre-K 4.
So maybe I could propose it, or maybe we could propose an alternative. We could approve the motion with the verbal caveat that I think it would be prudent for Mr. Martin and Ms. Varner to consider if there's any concerns regarding the block wall,
Well,
and if we can even get an extension on that, right? Like, right now, we're talking about postponing
Yeah, I was gonna say we need to-
postponing the vote, but I'm
yeah.
saying in regard to that, rather than postponing it, if we were to fail that motion, so still on that subject matter, but give approval for this SBA thing, I would hope that Mr. Martin has taken into consideration these two things at the same point in time, but it could have easily just not dawned. I don't
I
disagree
mean,
with
just,
your point.
I hear you. My quick question would be, let's say, just for devil's advocate, at Central Preston Middle School, how much open capacity do they have there currently? Is there any open classrooms?
I don't believe so. Maybe 1.
So before we would even move Kingwood Elementary to this building, we would have to pass a bond, which means that taxpayers would have to agree to pay more to do what they were talking about, eventually closing Kingwood and building onto this school. And so if that would happen, A, it's going to take us probably a considerable amount of time, and it's going to take a considerable amount of buy-in from the community to pay for it. And I think personally that's going to be much bigger dollar amount than fixing bad cement blocks that are on the building, whether that's fixing all the blocks or doing whatever. That's going to be a
Right.
significant cost, and it's going to be significant time. Considering that we have one issue on our plate right now, and that's approving this door renovation, we're only having to pay 35% of it. Personally, I feel like we should move forward with this, even if it's only used for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, until that, if that ever happens. At least the entryway is safe during that time period until that further decision is made. I just feel like they're separate issues, important but separate.
Other than, do you think that the Preston County taxpayer is going to be as likely to want to give you money if they hear that you just put $500,000 into a building that you can't use anymore? Knowing that we at least had the notification that there's a potential of a, and again,
I honestly feel like with all of our buildings, we have constant maintenance with all of our
We do,
issues. And if it's
right.
not Kingwood Elementary today, it's going to be West Preston. There's parts of West Preston that are just as old, that need
Yeah.
just as much maintenance going on. We just aren't actively identifying every single issue and doing every single issue. So I just feel like it's, you're always going to have maintenance issues, and some of them are going to be extensive.
you're proposing that this block thing on the gym is not a large alarm, it's a normal.
I'm saying we have a report that says we need additional information.
Yeah.
We need that additional information so that we know what we're dealing with the Kingwood Elementary block. I don't know what that information is because it's not been provided to us. But this budget item is approving a contract that we've already agreed to put out for bid. We've gotten the bids, we have a low bid. I feel like this we move on because that's what our agenda item is.
And I'm going to say that if we don't have a place to put kids, like if you say that building needed those kids moved, I think you put the security doors in there. Why would we put our kids at risk at not being in a secured area to keep people out when we know they could have to be there, even if it is for 2 or 3 years, while you wait? I understand what you're saying, but based off what you said, I thought that Central had that plan to have enough room for those kids. It sounds like they don't. They would have to have growth put onto that building before you'd be able to do that. And if we've got most of this paid for by somebody else, then I say that we pay for it and have it done, because I'll guarantee you the parents of the children in that school would want to have to know their kids are safe, just like all the other schools have.
Right, but there's not a dichotomy there. If there was issues with KES, schools all the time have to come up to contingency. Many times that means moving trailers in. Just like, it wouldn't necessarily be that we have to continue using that building if we were to be saying, hey, we don't want to invest in this because in the long term, it's not viable. Again, there's a lot here.
Right.
Right, and that's what I was kind of getting at in the beginning, though. If we're going to spend X amount of dollars repairing this school, but it would potentially pay the biggest portion of what we would need to add on over here, why wouldn't we look at that as an option before we spend twice the money eventually?
Okay, so I think we're good right now we have a motion on the floor to postpone this vote. It's been moved and seconded. So we need to vote on that. Just for a housekeeping issue, we have 4 members. So it takes a majority to move this motion. So it would take 3 yes votes to postpone it, correct? Because a 2-2 vote would not overcome status quo. So it'll require 3 yeses to postpone it, to actually postpone. This will be a voice vote?
Yes.
Okay, we will start with you, Mr. Hobetter.
To postpone.
So this would be to postpone, a yes would be to postpone, a no would be to not.
Yes.
No.
Mrs. Noss?
No.
No. Okay, so now we're back to the original motion, and just to remind us, so the motion is to approve the vendor for school boarding authority project at Kingwood Elementary. This motion was made by Mr. Kisner, and it was seconded by Mrs. Noss.
So I don't intend on amending the motion, but I would say, Ms. Varner, that personally, I'd like you and Mr. Martin to talk through this, and again, even after we voted it, if you feel that it would be necessary to hold up anything or check on these, I agree with Mr. Hobetter's concern wholeheartedly. I'm willing to trust you with the vote as a yes, that you guys are going to talk about that and take into consideration information there before actually taking action on our vote.
Mr. Martin could always update us on what they find out next week via email. We don't have to have a meeting for that. I mean, we could.
Yeah, I think Mr. Tatham's pointed out, he does not expect us to have any results from that block test for a period of time. I don't know. It does not indicate the scope of time. It does say that it is obviously going to be costly, which normally means time consuming, where they wouldn't have said, here's our primary and listed the secondary
I get it.
specifically, that if you had budgetary constraints, if it was going to be cheap, I would not think that they would have mentioned that. So I don't have a problem with that. I would make sure that we are diligent with our funds.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
No.
Okay, any other discussion about the motion for approval of Veritas? Okay, not hearing any. This is a computer vote, and I call the vote.
Voting's open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is an item for adjournment, but before we do that, what items need to be added to the agenda for the next meeting? We'd previously discussed the delegation letter from West Preston Middle School regarding a dean of students. So I would like for that to be an agenda item where we can just get some data in comparison to other schools. And just more data on West Preston School to see if it merits that. Maybe also at that time, Mrs. Herco, I don't know if you'll have enough time to get up and running on that, but if you have any opinions or recommendations, the board would be interested in those. We also had the bus seniority substitute policy that Mr. Kisner requested that we put on the agenda. And then also, it's not necessarily an agenda item, but Mr. Kisner had requested the special ed audit reports to be released to the board members in full. And then fourth, we had just update the board on plans for any liquidation at Fellowsville Elementary School and specifically any real estate. And that's not putting a timestamp on that, it's just how is that process going to work and how is the community going to be involved in that? Other items that need to be added to the agenda.
I would request that if Mr. Seymour would be willing to be here with an update of what the job duties are going to be with all the assistants, and if he still is interested in maybe pursuing that dean of students. I know that Mr. Martin didn't recommend that, but still, I think that's pretty vital to the student's success is the attendance and the discipline. So I would like his input on that again.
Okay, so update from Mr. Seymour at Preston High School regarding the job descriptions for the 3 assistants and if that changes the need for the 1 dean of students. Mr. Kisner, anything that you would request?
Yeah, at the last meeting, and I assume Mr. Martin was automatically punting it to the next meeting, but I discussed us setting a work session open for public. A work session is essentially for feedback from the prior school year from public, parents, children, students, teachers, faculty, with the purpose of being able to discuss things that they would like to see and how things went and maybe what we could do if there was something that the board could do to support or change policy-wise.
Okay.
I think that would fit actually directly in line with Mr. Seymour and potentially the West Preston letter that we've received. I mean, just being able to have some dialogue about those would be the kind of ideas and feedback that I think.
Okay, I agree. Mrs. Noss?
I would just say to try to have some kind of update on the Kingwood Elementary School gym, a little more than what the letter was that we got today.
Okay. Mrs. Varner, is there anything that you have robust?
No.
Okay. Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Hovatters moved it.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kisner. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn?
Does appear that Mr. Martin's the reason these meetings are slow.
Okay. I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Great job keeping us going, Ms. Varner.